Hello.
It's David in the book corner. I haven't done that in a while.
Okay. So you missed your recording?
A little bit.
Okay.
Though I have just put a request out for Halloween videos. For a Halloween live stream.
Okay.
Because it's on a Saturday. But I'm not, at the moment, working in the library.
Sure. Hello. Welcome to Cathy and Dave's Hobby Hangout. Yeah. I'm Cathy's Dave. Yes, what are you working on?
What am I working on? What I've been working on for the last...
The same thing, yes.
Yes, I'm continuing. As a, this is my Hangout project, so therefore I will continue to be working on it. So I need to finish off the waste unit, which sounds like it's a disposal thing, but no, it's actually
Waste
just
with an eye.
Wait, yes. So I need to put the side skirt on.
Does it have a waste unit? Because presumably it has some sort of fuels. Would that not generate some sort of waste?
It's a magic giant robot.
Oh, okay, right.
I don't remember how these ones are powered. Depends on what giant robot, what series, depends on what they're actually powered by.
Okay.
Like the ones in Gundam 00 are solar reactors,
Okay.
which glow very nicely.
Sure.
But I don't know whether they have waste.
You look like the expert of this.
There's expert, and then there's haven't really looked that carefully.
Oh, okay. Well, you build a lot of these models.
Yeah, they just don't mark the waste unit.
Or the exhaust also.
Yeah. These don't have very obvious exhaust ports to shoot proton torpedoes into.
Okay, sure.
What have you been working
Well, it's not something I have been working on, something I will be working on. So, a little while ago I mentioned I was doing a, sort of, well, I don't usually do yarn stuff, but I have done some yarn stuff. So there's a local history project, because there's a very old church nearby that has a Norman era arch in it, and as part of a local history thing that was supposed to be happening loads this summer, but has had to be toned down a little bit. Although I still managed to go on a sort of slightly social distance tour a little while ago. But yes, they have a thing where people are recreating. I think they're recreating the arch with basically tapestry stitched stuff. So I got sent this in the post, and the deadline is the end of this week, so I need to take it up there, but it's not far. So yeah, so I'm doing yarn, and yeah, so this is the thing I did, because they kind of assigned you yarn colours slightly at random. So I had these colours, and that's what I came up with. So I was trying to do leaves for a long time. I was trying to make leaf shapes, and I could not figure it out because I'm not very experienced at this sort of thing. So I just did like different, I don't know, sort of try and make it look a little textured, so just bits in different directions. So it's sort of like obviously the moon and stars and over some leaves. And the stars are actually, so the moon I did with the yarn they gave me, and I think that came out quite well actually, because that's quite an ordered sort of stitch, whereas here I was doing some different things. But then I randomly had some thinner yellow yarn, so I did the stars from that. I don't know why I had that, it's just in my sewing box, but I don't like knit or crochet, so I can't really recall where that came from or why it's there. But I had it and I've used it, and I now have extra yarn. I haven't decided what I'm doing with that yet, but yes, I need to put this in the envelope with the little postcard and take it to the place where they're collecting all the stuff together. So yes, that's something to do in the next couple of days. Yes.
When it's not raining.
Well, yes.
No. Excellent.
And how are you?
How am I? I'm not too bad. I have been in a library, which, you know, is always good. We have had people coming into the library, which is even better.
You've been in the library quite a lot, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm actually in a library for every day, each of my working days this and next week, which I mean might sound less impressive, but given, you know, what I've been doing up to now, I mean that's pretty damn good. So
yes.
and obviously still working on video stuff as you, if you were right here right at the start, and our random introduction that we really...
It wasn't really an introduction, you just hijacked it by tasking about stuff.
Yeah, that's what I do though, so...
Yes.
If you come here for professionalism, well...
Yeah, we've not really worked much on that. Yes.
I'm hoping you're here just for us randomly chatting, which, if that's the case, well, that's definitely what you get.
That is the thing we have plenty of.
Yeah. So how are you being?
I'm okay. It's been a little confusing recently. So last week was supposed to be the day before I went back to the office. But then a couple of days before I went back to the office, we were told actually there's been a change of policy, and now people who would sort of do my kind of type of job need not go back to the office, which I think confused us for a little bit until further emails came from kind of like our director and then from our department kind of clarifying things. So yeah, and then I was a bit conflicted for a little bit, but should I go back to the office, should I not? Mostly because I prepared and I bought a lot of fingerless gloves in preparation for it being cold. And also because I'm already kind of going part way into work to take our little boys to nursery, so I sort of thought, should I just keep going in? But then a lot of my colleagues didn't have any intention of going in. I thought, well, if I'm mostly going in to see them and they're not there, so I'm still working from home, I will have to go in, I think once every few weeks for kind of a bit of a keep in touch type thing. Although I am told I can now use the microwave. Because that was the other concern, is I'd be in a cold building and couldn't have hot food. But apparently the point was made that using the fridge, which will keep the virus alive, but not using the microwave, which will kill it, is not the most logical thing in the world. So
They're using it as a selling point to get more people back in. You can now use the microwave.
Well, no, it's more kind of, I think some people, obviously were finding it difficult working from home for various reasons, or like might have felt. So it was kind of like, if you feel you're uncomfortable working from home, or if it's better for your mental health, you go in the office, do that. But I think where they're expecting to have about 30 people in the office at the time is now under 10. So, yeah. The problem is they can't count with all these rotors, and now it's changed again. So
Sounds
I think,
about right.
yeah, and I mean, I kind of feel like I was in a holding pattern for a while, and so it's like, no, the holding pattern's actually how things are. And it's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I think just getting used to stuff a bit. Does mean I feel a bit flustered recently.
Okay.
Which isn't the best, but I think it's fine. I can get back into it. I think it's just because the way they kind of reinstated the hours before they decided where everyone was being.
On the plus side, I'm not around to harass you, so yeah.
Well, you weren't too much of a problem. It was fine, but yes, I am working in the house without other people a bit more now, but that's okay. I guess I can still just like wander into the kitchen to get things or sort things out. So
that is allowed, yes.
Yes. So yeah, I'm generally okay.
Good. Excellent. So what have you been reading?
Okay. So I have been reading Blood of Assassins by R.J. Barker. This is the second book in a trilogy about assassins, quite clearly.
It is kind of in the series name.
Yeah.
There's a lot of assassins.
Yes. So it's because you've read that whole series already, haven't you? And you've also been to a talk the author gave before lockdown. And yes, so I think you're the one who sort of bought it into the house and just to read it. But yeah, it's good. I think I hadn't read it first because I thought I wasn't sure how it would be, but then I've heard the author on a couple of podcasts, and he seems like quite a nice chap. So sometimes people seem quite fascinating, like, oh, I'll read their book.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah. And yes, so it's about series is about a guy called Gerton who has a clubfoot, which it occurs to me is a phrase that you hear, but I don't actually know what that looks like. I mean, I don't mean he's disabled and has like some way misshapen foot.
Yes,
that's it.
Yeah,
okay. I feel like it's one of those phrases that you wouldn't use nowadays to describe people because it would be horrendously rude. And I don't know if many people have it nowadays because of like medical science.
Yeah, I don't know what the medical diagnosis would be, but I imagine it's something that is curable now with
Yeah, or like people have prosthetics or special shoes.
Yes.
I mean, I think this character kind of special shoes, but I was just because I was listening to something podcast recently where people were talking about disability and in sort of science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and this got briefly mentioned. The main one that I mentioned was the Bukowski books as well, which again, so is a good example of having a disabled character. But yes, so it's about Beaton, who's in the first book he's a young man, kind of like coming of age kind of age, who he's like the apprentice to an assassin. So his master, she travels around, she teaches him all this stuff, and then they go somewhere to a job that's kind of based on some people his master used to know, and then he's kind of basically in this court pretending to be a noble, and actually there's a lot of people who dislike him and all the stuff, and yeah, it's sort of him. Well, I say that's quite a kind of age sort of story.
I mean, it's
quite good. There's like a bit of magic, but magic is kind of bad. But then, but the setting's quite interesting. So it does still have that kind of like typical fantasy feel to an extent. Like there are big castles and things seem reasonably European, but then there's some fun stuff. So there's like there's mounts. They don't seem to have horses. They have what are called mounts, which are basically what you'd ride. So they use like pack animals and like mounts. There's horses. That's all they ever get called. But they have antlers. I don't think they're like reindeer or like reindeer. They're just like I'm kind of envisioning like llamas but with antlers.
I just went with giant reindeer.
Okay. So it could be like elk
big,
or something.
Yeah, big. Kind of very.
Because reindeer aren't that big. We saw some at Christmas last year. It's like these are tiny.
Big kind of what you expect.
This guy in this
prehistoric type reindeer.
Is that what an elk is?
Kind of, I suppose.
Okay.
There is illustrations around of the what they.
For some reason, I was picturing something that was just kind of like a llama, but with antlers. Not exactly. Somewhere between like a llama and a deer. Like I think they're a bit fluffier than you sort of picture deer being.
I kind of think they're a bit more.
I kind of just pictured them being a bit more fluffy.
I didn't think
but
they were
also
that
massive,
fluffy.
scary antlers.
I sort of saw them.
Maybe they just go on about the colours quite a bit of them.
I just can't see the cavalry. The cavalry. Yeah, my mental image now of the cavalry on llamas just doesn't work.
Well, not exactly like llamas, but like kind of that level. I just think they're quite because isn't there? I feel like at some point aren't they sheared or am I misremembering? Anyway, that's like a fun thing, and then there's stuff to do with like the background, the mythology. So they're like dead gods, so they were gods, and then the gods died, but they're still priests, and that, and then there's stuff to do with like people's superstitions, and so there's a lot of like superstitious stuff. Some of it seems to be based on actual things, and some of it you're not so sure about. But yeah, so no, it's a good setting, and the book's quite good, and some element of like some people quite unpleasant, but then other people try to be hopeful, and hopeful people seem to so far largely done alright. So in the second book, Beaton's been away for a while, and he kind of comes back, and he finds that people he used to know have changed quite a bit, and sometimes he won't accept that, and it's sort of like seeing it plays like it's a bit like, oh, everyone is taken in by this guy, and is like, is it not just that you don't like him? It hasn't been confirmed yet in the book, so I'm partway through, but yeah, and there's stuff with like, so a character who got elevated in the end of the last book is now kind of dealing with being in this sort of elevated position and trying to change things and do things for good, even though there's a lot of stuff against them. So there's also been a lot of war.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I've enjoyed the series. Interestingly, there is no kind of world almanac book that he's written.
Okay.
He's created the world. He just makes it up, and then that's it. He doesn't do any sort of.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that depends on the author a bit. When you say that there's no world almanac book, I'm like, most series don't have that.
Yeah, no, what I mean is he's not got a big history of the world or anything like that. It's just what you see on the page is all the world building he's done.
That's fine.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's just interesting when you've got versus a lot of other,
I mean,
bigger tomes of.
Maybe it's because I spent like some of my early days of going on the internet a lot in like fantasy writing forums and things, but I'm like, yeah, you just need to make things seem deep. They don't have to actually be deep.
Yeah, no.
And it's good to leave spaces where people can kind of fill in and stuff. It's more about challenging people's assumptions as well. I've been to quite a few workshops and this sort of thing also.
I'll be quiet.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yes, I hadn't really you couldn't tell from reading.
No, that's
it,
the point.
So,
It's it's an interesting because I asked them the question that is there actually any sort of do you have a big file of background world building that didn't appear in the book, or is it just what was there? And no, it's all what he has done for the world is all in the book.
Yeah, he
hasn't got a big file of stuff that he uses to set a scene, but then you never get to actually, which is sometimes a shame when some of these authors have these big sort of files of the world that actually nobody ever gets to know about because
unless the book becomes popular enough that they can turn it into an RPG.
Well, that or just sell
it.
Yeah.
I think also because it's a trilogy, I suppose you have to keep 3 books. Whereas sometimes people who are writing multiple books in the same world, multiple series in the same world, do keep a bit more track. I think it depends on the scope of what you're doing as well. Anyway, what are you reading?
I'm currently reading The Calculating Stars, so I'm not going to talk about that because you can go back to episode.
Oh, we're giving them numbers and things because the first two are not posted in order.
No.
I spoke about the series a little bit ago.
Which is
should probably start writing this down.
I believe I commented on this the other year. So it would make when I do upload the videos a bit easier. Sure. So yes, it's so far it's been very good. I have a soft spot for disaster type things. I mean, I quite enjoyed Armageddon and Deep Impact when they came out. So a book about an asteroid hitting the Earth is kind of well within my wheelhouse.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing you particularly enjoyed.
I wouldn't say I particularly enjoy. For some reason, I have this morbid fascination about reading stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah.
I was trying to remember a friend of ours in uni had the whole semester. I can't remember if it was a lecture or a seminar or something. Oh, I think it might have been a lecture on ways that the Earth could be destroyed or
As you do.
made uninhabitable.
There's a lot of them. Let's not go down that road at the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
I quite kind of because remember I had both the VHS of both Deep Impact and Armageddon, both of which I enjoy for different reasons. I think Deep Impact is slightly more scientifically plausible and kind of a bit more realistic.
That's the one I've seen less.
While Armageddon is just crazies in space.
Have you seen that clip of Ben Affleck's commentary on it?
No, I haven't.
You really should.
It's. I mean, to be honest, the entire film is batshit crazy. I'm not sure whether any of them were taking it seriously. And you've got some huge names in that. You've got Bruce Willis and Steve Buscemi.
I just mentioned Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck. Yeah.
Tyra meant it automatically gets an Aerosmith. Well, not automatically because Lord of the Rings didn't get
No.
that. But can you imagine?
I want that now. I want Aerosmith to do the soundtrack to Lord of the Rings. Oh yeah. Yeah.
If Tyler was in it, it doesn't make any sense why it didn't happen.
I don't know, but it should have done. Even
though you don't actually like the Armageddon song.
Well,
that's your least favourite Aerosmith song.
Because it just got played. It was the one song that got played huge. So yeah,
it's like the hot dog song around when Titanic came out.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's it is just a cheesy poppy one. It's not really the kind of representative of what they do, but it's all right. I mean, the rest of the soundtrack album's all right.
Okay, what for Armageddon?
Armageddon, yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard the rest. It's the one song they played on the radio.
I can't remember whether we still got it upstairs or whether it was one we gave away, but
I don't recall.
I did have the soundtrack. The soundtrack was not bad either. Anyway, this is about books I've read.
Yes.
The book I'm reading, not my.
Not weird alternate universe film scores.
Yeah.
We should return to that.
And you can tell Manel is not watching because he has not commented on my poor musical taste yet.
No. Oh dear.
Yeah, Armageddon soundtrack when I quite.
Sure. Anyway, yes, the book. Yes.
Book, yes. I'm sorry. Yes. I have just read, in fact, read though, The Straight Razor Cure by Daniel Polanski. First in the Lowtown series of books. I don't actually know how many are in the Lowtown series. Mainly because we got this from a convention.
Oh, yeah. Is it an arc?
No, it's a
Okay.
standard copy. It's just one we had it from a convention. So yes, it follows. Is the actual name Warden? Okay.
This reminds me of when I used to work in the library and did teen reading group, because all those books are first person, none of us could have names and
yes,
names of the character.
it's first person narrative.
There you go.
And I'm just reading on the back. That is the name of the person is Warden.
Oh, did you think that was the title?
Yeah,
That'd be reasonable.
I mean, I think that's perfectly fair to.
So it's making me think of that Pete Newman book where half the character's called The Something.
Yes. So he is a ex-soldier, member of a not quite secret police force, but special operations police force, who now is a basically drug dealer and petty criminal. I mean, he doesn't do really bad things; he just deals drugs. But kind of in Lowtown in this
What
part of the
setting
city.
is it?
Fantasy.
Well, yeah, I got
I'm gonna just give me a moment.
Sure.
Give me a moment.
Okay.
You see, the problem is I started reading it a while ago, put it down for some reason, and then picked it up recently because it was reasonably thin and I wanted to finish it. But that does mean that some of the early world building I may have forgotten. So
I was just thinking drug dealing sounded a bit more contemporary than what.
no, medieval still.
Okay.
We're still back. We're not dealing.
Because assassins are usually fairly medieval, and then drug dealing sort of things to be more modern, probably because they only outlawed drugs quite recently in our time.
No gunpowder. Still within swords and crossbows. Got magic, but it seems very limited. You do run into a few magic users in this. They don't seem to do anything particularly flashy. Or they do, but yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting. I say it's not particularly thick, which is always there's a good story in here. Yeah, I'm not very good at selling these things sometimes, but yeah, he's doing a bit of a whodunit.
Oh, okay.
There's some children have ended up being murdered, and he ends up being the one person that can actually, because he lives in the area and that can actually find out who's done it, and,
okay.
rather than the authorities.
Okay. Because I suppose it's just the drug dealer thing that's confused me a little bit, because various kinds of books kind of have drugs of various kinds, but they're usually not as much illegal as just it's probably a bad idea to be a junkie, but just recreational use seems fine as mentioned. Although I suppose a lot of stuff shies away from that. Yeah,
I think it's people don't tend to. You tend to have if you're dealing in drugs, you tend to be the villain, or it's in this case, I mean, he's very much a grey character. Mm-hmm. He's done some bad things in his past. He does some pretty not particularly brilliant things in the book. Mm-hmm. Something's happened in his past that meant he got kicked out of the special operations thing and ended up, he likes partaking of his own stash a little bit too much.
Okay.
So yeah, he's certainly not a heroic character in the normal sense of the word. So I will have to have a look and see what some of the others are like. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shall we do?
Yes, we shall go on to the actual main topic, which are children's picture books. To follow on from our previous discussion of children's TV show, needless to say, I mean, obviously we do have a toddler, so we read lots of children's books, but I also do it as part of my job. So
I used to.
And yes, so we are quite well versed in children's picture books.
I think there's a bit of a difference though between, like, you'd read some for work, these ones are like reading to school groups, and these are ones that, you know, you can kind of get the kids doing stuff with when there's a group of them, and like, these are ones that are nice and quick or quite good for reading out loud or holding up to like a large group. A difference to, this is a book I have read already 4 times this week. So that's where the real test of these things, I think, comes in.
Yes, I suppose there is that as a...
So it's sort of like, there's some skills stuff, but it's different. So did you want to start talking about any particular ones? Or?
I'm okay just to hit wherever you want to.
Elusive Moose. This is, I'm gonna, because it's lovely. So this is a book that I sort of discovered. I had to buy this second hand off Amazon because the only thing they printed it in, which is sad. So it's by Joan Gannij? I'm not quite sure what that said. And Clare Beaton. So Clare Beaton's the illustrator. I wanted to mention her particularly because she does these amazing illustrations based on felt. So they're just really, really pretty and well done. These cool kind of like nature-based things that she does. They're just like with, it's not all felt, it's like various fabrics, but she's just this very impressive kind of like fabric artist. She's got quite a few books, so some of them are a bit... It's the moose. Just giving away the ending. But yeah, so there's a few of these. This Elusive Moose, the first one I found, which, because we quite like moose. So. Moose. There's also Secret Seahorse, which is similar thing. So you kind of like have a page and you've got various creatures in different environments. This is kind of like North American, kind of North US, Canada stuff. And then there's also Secret Seahorse, which is under the sea, which are something quite like under the sea stuff. So, and you have to like find the moose or the seahorse and at the end. And then there's a bit at the end which sort of explains about animals of the northern lands, which is quite educational. But she also has like, there's 1 moose and 20 mice.
Yes.
Which is all just felt, and that's like you just have numbers and different animals with different numbers, and there's a cat to find. And she also has some kind of non-fiction books about like making stuff with felt and things like that. And I just quite like her as an artist. I don't tend to have a lot of strong things about illustrators or artists a lot, I must admit. I mean, I can usually kind of recognise people, but yeah, no, hers are really good just because of this really nice fabric stuff, and I think having seen those is kind of why I thought, oh, maybe you can actually just use felt to make pictures, because I'm not very good at drawing. I'm not sure how good I am at felt pictures either. That's probably more effort, but yeah, so that's really good. I just really like those. But yeah, it's a shame they don't seem to be massively available. Like I said, I had to get that one second hand, and Secret Seahorse. Well, something like that anyway. But yes, yeah, I think she's based in London, or I think she's UK based, but some of her publishers are in sort of in different parts of the world. But yes, are we doing like one each? Or?
I'm currently struggling with.
Okay, you're having robot problems. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know how that can be. So skirt problems.
Are you having trouble attaching your side skirts with your extra thrusters on?
Once a zip on a skirt I had broke down when I was working in a library, which is a public place, and somebody spotted it when I was going for the children's library, explained to me that my underwear was visible, and then I had to go hide in the staff room. Luckily somebody had some thread somewhere. I had to literally sew myself back into my skirt and then cut myself out of it. Can't stop that, can you?
It has jets in the bottom. Anyway.
It was a shame because it was quite a nice skirt, but the zip just broke. I mean, thinking about it now, I probably could have fixed it, but I wasn't doing much sewing stuff. Anyway. Okay, so the other one I want to talk about is kind of an old one, but Each Peach, Pear, Plum. By Janet and Allan Ahlberg. I feel like there was loads of Allan Ahlberg stuff around when we were younger, and now there's not quite as much.
Yeah, I don't know what they've published recently. I certainly haven't seen a huge lot of new stuff by them.
Well, I kind of assumed probably they weren't doing new stuff anymore, and it's just...
I mean, let's be honest, the stuff they have put out is still quite popular, so...
Yeah. So I mean, this is kind of like the board book version. And I mean, Elusive Moose, for example, I think I got when my sister was going to have when my sister was pregnant with my nephew, I got the board book version of that, so which I don't think they have anymore, but that's fine. So the thing with each peach, pear, plum is you sort of like, if they don't know, it's like each peach, pear, plum, I Spy, Tom, Thumb. And then Tom Thumb being the next one you have to apply something else. It's basically kind of like I Spy with different nursery rhyme characters. And also Robin Hood and the Wicked Witch, who are just, I guess, generic characters to an extent. And each page kind of leads on from the next one. The thing I like about this is it's one of these ones that rewards rereading, and it rewards a lot of rereading. Because at first you're a bit like, okay, like, each peach, pear, plum, I Spy Tom Thumb in the cupboard, I Spy Mother Hubbard down the cellar, I Spy Cinderella. And it goes like that. And each character's kind of in the foreground, and you I Spy a character who's in the background, and they're in the foreground of the next page. But actually, when you read it quite a lot, you realise you're actually going on a journey. So, at the first, there's an orchard where there's obviously a plum tree and the other trees. And if you look, you can see that somebody's put a ladder against the plum tree and picked a basket of plums. And then you realise that Mother Hubbard is going down the cellar and getting a massive dish. And then at the end, I like the end, because you get all these characters sort of like kind of individually, and then at the end, oh look, there's plum pie. And then there's everyone, and then everyone who was in the book before that, including random side characters like the little rabbits are on some pages, are all eating the pie. And then you realise the whole thing was like Mother Hubbard was making the pie. Which, I don't know if that's obvious or not, but when you first read it, you're just kind of going through it, but when you've read like a lot of times. But I just quite like that. I also like the way that there sort of seems to be this community of loosely affiliated people who then all come together to eat pie in the sun. Which is very nice. Yeah. The one that I don't like is that the three bears are hunting and they do actually have guns, and I'm like, oh.
And Baby Bear does not know trigger control at all. And
also then Baby Bunting does end up in the river, and you're like, I mean, the bears, although that's kind of thing, because the baby, there's kind of like a literal Moses basket in the river, and then the bears find it and fish the baby out. Which I think is a little bit more child engagement than I like. And also they kind of have guns, you're like, I think it's supposed to be this nice pastoral scene. It's a bit like we're not really at the point when people just have guns around the place, no. And hunting is generally done by like
when was
awful rich folk. I want to say like 70 something is my absolute guess. This is the board book version, so where's the 78?
Yeah, so you would have still had plenty of farmers with shotguns.
Yeah, well, this thing, and then also like so it would have been like hunting would have been more of a thing, because I mean I can remember being in sixth form and that being the whole sort of fox hunting thing, and a lot of the more countryish people I know are a bit like, but you have to destroy foxes, and then other people are like, but it's awful, and I think now that it was just a thing that awful rich people do or something. Well, not just that. I appreciate there's more to it, but like it's not the only way. You don't have to be riding a horse. But yes, I suppose it did give employment to people who had horses. Yeah. But yes. Anyway, that's aside.
Come for the picture books. Learn our thoughts on hunting and gun ownership.
Yeah, well, I don't think gun ownership is as much of a thing here.
Yeah.
What I like though, and it took me a while to realise, is that the front bit of the book, that's just like the title page, you normally just go past that to get to the words, is actually a map of the bloody story. Like, it's a map of the whole thing. And I just think that's really clever and well done. And it's like simple, but yeah. So, do you want me to just keep going?
No, I think I'll just, no.
Okay.
We'll
if you've got to a stopping point.
Well, I've got one answer. We'll start with one I'm quite infamous for. It is Shark in the Park. This is a story about Timothy Pope, who has a new telescope and takes out to the park to see what he can see. And what he can see is a shark.
Don't do it.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
So throughout this, it's Timothy Pope. He looks at the sky, he looks at the ground, he looks left, he looks right, he looks all around, and this is what he sees. And then he shouts out, "There's a shark in the park." And it is usually not a shark. I've become infamous for this because when I started doing it at the Story Tots preschool session, I would project well. That bit.
He just shouted really.
I was just being away. It was not until I was doing some stories at a community building that just opened, where we'd got a library, and I just shouted it exceptionally loud. They said they hadn't got any problem with noise, so I took them at their word.
It was a community building for like some of their client group, were people who deafblind or people.
Yeah.
Like
So they
like
used to random noises.
Noises.
So yes, and I was doing this with actually someone doing sign language at the same time. Yeah. So I shouted it exceptionally loud. I was told that they could hear it outside. So I still
did somebody have to explain what it was because they thought it was actually one of their.
Yes, they thought it was one of their user groups. Like, no, it's just David reading the story. I was doing this like 3 times a day for like 6 weeks or something like that. I lost
not every day for 6 weeks. Like once.
Okay, yeah, once a week. But I lost my voice at one point because I was doing it so loud.
I also because these were like community sessions because it was a new building and they were sort of getting people to come in, sort of have like ongoing like weekly open day sort of things. So I brought our son along one point. This when he was a baby. And usually when David shouts, the children quite enjoy it because like, oh, an adult shouting, and unfortunately, our little boy just burst into tears. But just from his point of view, it was Daddy is shouting. So
yeah, I mean, I do normally have to give a not scripture trigger warning, but yeah, I'm going to be loud when I do this story. So when I do it at the story talk session, most of the childminders and that they know as soon as it comes out, it's going to be a bit loud. So I don't shout it quite that loud, but it's a fun story, and you get it's there's a bit at the end where the kids can, because obviously right at the end there is a shark there. But of course, the book doesn't acknowledge it, so you definitely get a good bit of interaction where the kids are going, "No, it's a shark." They're like, "No, we haven't got a shark." There's all these things. No, it's a shark. No, really, it's not a shark. So that's always good fun. And I say it's nice, simple. It's not a long book, so that's nice. Yeah, so these are not in any particular order. I suppose we have to go on and at least bring one Julia Donaldson book into the. This is the Gruffalo. So Julia Donaldson, national treasure that she is.
Isn't she the biggest selling author in the UK?
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me.
Except a lot of people don't count Joan's books and like, oh no, it's somebody else. It's like, okay, but if you look at the number of books and I guess book related things sold, it's definitely Julia Donaldson.
So Julia Donaldson has written
most of them rhyme.
Yeah,
that's just how she lives. Except she's done like lockdown videos and she wasn't rhyming all the time. So maybe that's not. But a lot of them, I think, started out songs, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And in this particular case, illustrated by Axel Scheffler, who's done Scheffler. I can never pronounce that correctly. Who's illustrated quite a number of her books. And the Gruffalo is a good one. It's about a mouse who is walking through the forest and gets to meets other animals, predator animals along the way, who are obviously out to eat the mouse. But his excuse is that he can't come for lunch or tea or a feast. He's meeting a Gruffalo, who he describes, and the other animals go, "Ooh, I don't like this. Don't want to meet the Gruffalo because he sounds scary and he likes to eat owl ice cream or scrambled snake." And then he sees the Gruffalo.
The question is, did the Gruffalo already exist, and the mouse unknowingly happened to describe a creature that already existed it didn't? Or did the mouse somehow manage to create the Gruffalo? It's never really answered.
No, I think that's a bit of a deeper question than we're going to with the...
Yes.
But it's a nice one. It's got... the illustrations are great.
It's kind of her biggest thing, because then there's a sequel. I mean, obviously most of her books are pretty famous and stuff, and there's shows and songs, and there's like spin-off books, and there's annuals, and there's also the TV shows they do each Christmas. They do an animation of them, so they started with the Gruffalo. The animations are interesting. They always have all the words, but sometimes they kind of do them a little bit differently. So I feel like they go really slowly.
Yeah,
we're used to just reading it. It's like reading this book at speed.
I can read this in 10 minutes.
I think I could probably read it in less.
Okay, well, the point is you can pace it, but you're still doing it in about 10 minutes. There's not a huge amount. They string them out for half an hour, at which point we're really sitting there going, "Get on with it." Next line,
I mean, we can. It's all right. Things once you get used to it. We've watched it quite a bit because our son has a few of them on DVD.
It's not really for us. Again, we like to watch them because it's like, oh, this is see what they do. But in the end, it's not.
I felt like the TV one kind of didn't do the reveal of the Gruffalo. There's no such thing as a Gruffalo.
Oh.
And then they didn't have that. I was like, well, that's kind of the point of it. But okay.
Yeah, I mean,
and also there's quite famous people like I think Rob Brydon's in all of them. And yeah,
I mean it's it's very well done, and and it's a good introduction to, if you haven't read the book, but read the book. It's very good. We like it.
I feel like most people probably have some idea what the Gruffalo is.
I'd hope so. If not, you can get it from your local library.
I did like a thing was when you put a picture of Mark Ruffalo in the magazine. It was like, his eyes are orange, his tongue is black. It's like, oh no, wait.
wrong Ruffalo. Yeah. No, very, very good book, and as I say, Julia Donaldson has some.
She's done she's done quite a few lockdown videos, hasn't she? And she's got the artists involved and things as well. Because so she mostly works with Axel Scheffler, but then she's also worked with various other people as well.
I think there's some. I mean, some of them are not quite as classic as Superworm is.
I don't actually know Superworm.
The Ugly Five's not particularly my favourite.
No, I see that.
I do have Detective Dog over there, which is
Detective Dog's pretty good.
Room on the Broom is good, and Snail and the Whale. Yes. Although I wasn't so much a big fan of Snail and the Whale to start with, but it's grown on me.
Is that because he kept wanting it?
Well, that's because he kept wanting it for a while.
After a while, you just read these things so many times, you're like, oh, this is a thing I know.
Yeah, I think
I was sleep deprived.
I think initially when I first read it in the library, I just didn't quite appeal.
Yeah. I think I quite like Joan on the Broom.
Yeah, I like that. And
Gillian Anderson's the witch, and there's a TV version of that. Although in that they kind of make everyone a bit more adversarial, particularly the cat.
Yeah. Again, you adaptions are a thing. So.
Speaking of adversarial cats, here's the segue.
Well done.
So these are the Oi Animal books. It starts with Oi Frog, and it goes to Oi Dog, Oi Cat, Oi Duckbill Platypus, Oi Puppies, Oi Aardvark.
Yeah, that's correct.
There we go.
It's the Frog and Friends series.
Oh, I thought it was just called Oi Animal.
No, it's the Frog and Friends series.
Does it say that anywhere on the book?
Later on, they might do.
It doesn't say that on the book.
Okay, well, it's the Frog and Friends series.
Oi Frog, and it starts with. Got a frog. My hair. So the cat tells the frog that he has to sit on a log, and the frog points out the logs are all knobbly and puts splinters in your bottom. And then the cat says it's the rules, and then basically all the answers like a hare sits on a chair, and a mule sits on a stool, and gophers sit on sofas. So it's kind of basically all the animals sit on the thing that rhymes. So
it's phonics.
Oh yeah. Oh, we probably need to start knowing about that more. Need to do some research.
It's educational.
Yeah. And then at the end of the dog, the Oi Frog book, a dog is introduced, and then the sequel is Oi Cat. No wait, it's Oi Dog. Yeah, sorry. Basically, the cat turns up, bosses the frog around, tells him he can't sit where he wants to sit. And then the dog appears. Then Oi Dog is where the dog is sitting on the frog, and the frog says, "No, I'm changing the rules." So then the dog makes cat sit on gnats to punish the cat, and then he says, "Like whales sit on nails," and the dog's like, "The whales work like that," and the frog's like, "They don't have to like it; they just have to do it." And see, in the first book, you felt sorry for the frog because you're like, "Oh, this cat's turned up and it's like bossing him about." But then when the frog gets the power, he's just as bad as the cat. And then the dog is just there, being generally quite pleasant, and a little bit dim-witted.
The dog just wants to help in a lot of respects.
The dog just wants to be helpful, and occasionally ask silly questions. And then what will happen is they'll be like, "Don't be absurd, don't be ridiculous." Now, it's one of these things that you get in picture books that, at first, none of the genders are mentioned. Then, at one point, they call the cat he, and then they called the frog he. I don't think they've ever actually specified the gender of the dog.
I don't remember seeing...
I don't know. Well, because you thought the cat was female for a while. I was like, no, because they called the cat he. Because it's like he can only sit on something that rhymes with
cat,
and then I think because the dog is not so good at this. He's just quite impressed, and he's like, oh, he's really good at this when he talks about the frog. And then the cat's always like, so the cat's there usually being quite sarky. So oi cat is where the cat is fed up of sitting on gnats, and the cat does a lot of sighing and frowning. So I mean the cat is being a bit. There's sort of a slightly adversarial thing, and then there's other animals get involved, and I mean there's stuff like, so they had like an alligator called Alice and stuff, and they had like the pelicans called Pippa and stuff, because they start rhyming first names in all the books as well, because some animals you can't like Bill Platypus. Or Bill Platypus. I tried to do Australian accents for that, because there's also kangaroo in that book, and so they're quite poor. I also assumed that Platypus sounds quite nasal, and then I had nowhere else to go for the Ahlberg. I usually try and do some sort of voice. But the thing I found with trying to do the voices is, because so what I do with the Gruffalo, and again all those characters are male, is so smaller animals have higher pitched voices, but then also you kind of tend to do like lower pitched voices as masculine. So do you soften them a bit or what? So it's a bit like that. And then there's some books, like we have one that isn't in this part because I don't particularly like it, where there's lots of different animals in the snow, and it only ever says he. Any animal that's gendered has a he. I mean, sometimes there are multiple ones on the page, but then no one's ever she. It just sometimes doesn't specify the groups. And I always feel like I have to do those ones as female, because otherwise, why is it all boys in this book? And then some books do specify, and there'll be like a mixture of boy and girl characters. There's one with the hedgehog that I thought they hadn't gendered for quite a few times when I first read it, and I was like, I'm just going to make the hedgehog as neutral as I can. I don't know how you do that, because that's not actually a voice type.
Neutral hedgehog?
Well, no, not neutral, that's not quite right. But I was like, non-binary, that's it. I thought they haven't specified, and then after reading it quite a few times, actually they do say he wants for the hedgehog. The problem with that book, though, is they had several small female animals and one big male animal and a couple of other male animals at the same size. It's like, I'm running out of voices now because I'm not that good at this.
I have so many problems with that book.
Let's not get into the confusing physics and practicality of the balloon, okay?
Why was it more practical to build the balloon back again than it was to build a long ladder?
Air balloon? Where did the hot air come from? It's like, now we've got a balloon, and let's not. And to be honest, we want to talk about ones we like. They just got to make a point about gender.
They should have got in and ended up blowing in the wrong direction because the wind just happened to be not blowing in the right direction to save the mole.
I think the question is who stole the burners.
Anyway.
A
lot of picture books
don't
make sense.
This is the thing. So, these ones we're choosing, good ones. And this thing you can tell, because when you read something loads and loads of times, you sort of start to see the holes in it. There's some adaptations we have of, traditional fairy tales. Bear in mind that some of those are kind of not great. Anyway. And some of them, they try to modernise it a bit, but then it's a bit weird. Like the Rapunzel one we have. Yeah. Where it's a bit because in the original story, Rapunzel's parents are desperate for a child, and they can't have one. And then they steal... No, she's already pregnant, and then they steal lettuce from the witch, and the witch says, well, now I get your firstborn. Because that's the kind of thing that happens in fairy tales. But in the one that we have here, they kind of updated it a bit, and it's a bit we should eat loads of veg because it's good for you, and now we're having a baby, and now the witch has stolen our baby. But, because in the original Rapunzel, they're really poor, and they can't afford to buy, fresh vegetables. That's why the man steals them. In this book... There are pictures in the background that show they've clearly done international holidays. They also seem to have a lot of just general stuff. They're clearly quite well off, and this bloke's going and stealing his neighbour's lettuce. It's buy it, jerk. And he also keeps nagging everyone about eating vegetables. And there seems to be a general vegetable thing. They've also tried to take the romance out of the story by making the Rapunzel and the prince friends and making her really inventive, which is kind of good because, she's inventive and she's creating things. Yeah. But it just makes things really confusing because they've kept bits of the story in. It's
yeah, it is just...
I see what they're trying to do, but I was just a bit there are a lot of holes in this. But then again, stuff like that Sleeping Beauty book we got, which is much more straight retelling, you're and then the prince was in love with her and decided to kiss her that she was asleep. And just that's consent not how love works.
Consent, people.
This is that's not
Being
how love
unconscious
works, really.
does not mean you consent to kisses or or spells cast on you. D&D, thank you very much.
That sounds like a whole other thing I don't know about, and
At one point, because you have some spells in D&D. I think this was 3rd edition. It has to be a willing target. But if you are unconscious, you're considered willing.
Oh, it's like no means no, so therefore if you don't say no, everything's yes. That's bad, isn't it?
They've taken that out for later editions, but it's like, no, just because you're unconscious should immediately mean no.
Yes, okay. Well,
anyway, moving on from...
see, the one I quite like is Elves and the Shoemaker, because that's basically fine.
Yeah.
The other thing I say is the one we have doesn't mention the whole thing where the Shoemaker does a lot of charitable acts first, and then the Elves turn up. Also, but I don't think that was always in the ones we had when we were children.
I think also the elves they're supposed to make enough that they end up making enough that they can just keep selling and.
Well, in this book, it's more sensible that they kind of make a few more each time, and they have enough to retire on, which is fair enough and it's quite nice. I think in the original, I've read some versions of the original. Bearing in mind, obviously, I've also read adaptations when I was a child. Because in some of them, I think it's supposed to be like sad that the elves went away. It's supposed to feel like they were being punished for giving them clothes. But I'm not sure reading that actually was how it was. Like, much more what I assumed as a child. But I think in the original one, it's like Christmas Day, and the Shoemaker does some charitable acts, and then also in that, it's that he has leather, and the elves just make it. Like he's providing the material, and they're providing the labour.
Yeah. Whereas
in this, it's just like they've done everything. But obviously, as he sells more shoes, he can buy more material.
It's not about.
But it's that's a nice one. But then again, there's not much in the way of like having to update things particularly.
No. Because
it doesn't rely on a lot of old-fashioned stuff, or like these are the things people do when they're facing terrible poverty, or like everyone had to get married in the past, otherwise you were shunned. All this kind of business. So yeah, yes.
Anyway, shall we go?
Yes.
Just,
Oh yeah.
If we want classic, we shall bring out The Hungry Caterpillar.
Very hungry caterpillar.
Very hungry caterpillar. I keep misjudging how hungry it is. Eric Carle.
The whole point of the book.
This is an absolute classic.
We went to see a stage show of it like last year. Well, it wasn't just that. It's called the Hungry Caterpillar Show, but they had some other Eric Carle books. They also had like Brown Bear. But then they also had some books that aren't now available. It's like, oh.
Originally published 1969, is on its however many reprint. I don't think this is how many.
I think they probably start writing down after.
Yeah, this has been continuously in production for since then.
Man landed on the moon.
Yes, it's about a very hungry caterpillar. And it's just a fun little story. The illustrations are, very stylized, but very very Eric Carle. If you see an Eric Carle illustration, it's his. About it.
Well, Nick Sharratt's also like that. We didn't mention before, Shark in the Park's by Nick Sharratt.
Yes,
he does a lot of his stuff. Very.
And it's about a hungry caterpillar just eats through things. So it's got a bit of counting. It's got a bit of
days of the week,
object identification.
Where is he? Where did he go on Saturday? Was it a theme park?
Yeah, we presume it's some sort of theme park.
There was a deli though nearby as well.
And it's just a nice little story about, and then you learn about what happens to to caterpillars at the end when they build a cocoon.
I sort of feel like I don't know how much you have to explain The Very Hungry Caterpillar because it's been published since 1960.
I'm just making sure that people,
It just reminds me, I went to a writing workshop and people were like, who's familiar with Scooby-Doo? And the people didn't. And they're like, Scooby-Doo has been on TV continuously since the 60s. I cannot count for you not having seen it. Which I thought was quite fun.
Yeah, so it's just a lovely little story. It hasn't quite. Some of his other stuff isn't. Brown Bear. People do know a bit more.
We have that, and we used to read the library quite a bit as well. It's got a blue horse and a purple cat.
Bad Tempered Ladybird, I do remember.
No, so I don't remember that one.
Yeah, it's bad. That's an interesting one.
The show we went to had the very Dizzy Firefly, or the very something Firefly, and also something about 10 Little Rubber Ducks. Although I think that one might have been illustrated by Carle, but written by somebody else. But neither of them were in print. Like, we went outside and they had merch, and they had like Brown Bear, and they had like Very Hungry Caterpillar, and they didn't have the other books Because I think Oliver Boy liked one of them, and I was like, they're not selling that one. Let's just buy the one about the bear.
Yeah, but no, it's you know, if you haven't already read it, well, go and read it. It's a very nice little one.
Okay, so the one I'm going to do is Car Truck Jeep, which is also, as one probably see, illustrated by Nick Sharratt because he's quite distinctive, and it's by Katrina Sharman. So this you had loads of them because they had them in the libraries, so we were giving them out to like nurseries.
It's so every year it is Book Start Day. So Book Start is a charity that is for encouraging parents, reading to young children, because reading at a early age is really important. If you've ever met our little one and you know how much of a chatterbox he is, this is why he's such a chatterbox. This is why he uses such long words. It's because we've been reading 3 books a night to him since he was, well, we brought him home.
Well, I
pretty much.
The first few weeks.
Yeah.
Well, some of that wasn't reading and showing pictures, but yes.
Yeah, but he's been having books. He is exceptionally verbal.
I thought the reason chatterbox because he's my son.
Well, that as well, but you know the reason he uses. I mean, if you think about the language he uses,
he does say disappointed.
He uses
I'm very disappointed.
A lot of complicated words in the right context.
Okay, I think that's like just that we don't dumb down our speech, but
yeah, but the reading helps.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, for every year, except for this year because of obvious reasons, we get a large copy to read to groups and a box of usually sort of those sort of sized ones to give away to parents and toddlers to promote reading, to get them to come into the library with a free book, but also to promote reading at a young age. So that's important.
So this one we read this one quite a bit. So it's car, truck, jeep. Have you any fuel? Yes sir. Free tanks full. One for the red bus, one for the train, one for the pilot and her jumbo jet plane. And then there's kind of this family in a car and they keep going on a journey. Now what I like about this book is that you've got lots of different transport, but the drivers are all... it's just a very diverse selection of people in it. So you've got like a mum and a couple of kids in their car and they go for all sorts of things. But then you've got I think a lady on a motorbike. You've got various people on a bus. You've got a train, which has lots of different people. I'm pretty sure that that's Timothy Pope and his dad.
I think it's supposed to be.
I think that's an Easter egg for Sharpen Park. But again, like on this train, that you've got a woman with a veil. You've got various families and stuff. So you've just got there's a woman driving a digger. The pilot of the jumbo jet plane is a woman. Oh, the lorry driver's a woman. Bloke in a taxi. Where's the emergency services page? I've forgotten the order of this. There you go. So you've got paramedics, policemen, and firemen, various different races. So I mean that's quite nice in general. Also, so when we first got it, it's like, okay, clearly it's a sing along to the tune of Baa Baa Black Sheep. And first we're like, this doesn't quite scan. That was because we had not read it dozens of times. You can do it. You can do the whole thing. There's some pages where you have to have done it a few times to know how it scans.
Yeah.
Climb slowly up a steep hill on the way to town.
See, this when we got it for Book Start, I read it through once and then proceeded to do it in front of an audience. That did not go well.
See, they've kind of italicized the word steep to show you're supposed to put some sort of stress on it, but you really do have to.
I usually just drop steep, to be honest.
What?
You can get it to work there.
Okay. Well, I can do the whole thing. So, and then what happens, because he liked it and I read it quite a bit, he then started singing it on the bus. So for a while he would just sit there and sing it, and then if he got lost or stopped, he'd do the whole thing again. And it's like many verses of Baa Baa Black Sheep. I can't remember the order of it all now, but I do know most of the bits and which bits rhyme with them. So yes, that's quite nice. And then it's and at the end, like you've got the red bus, the train, and the jumbo jet plane all kind of going to sleep. Although it's quite funny because like the little house is asleep, and then he used to go, "Wake up, house!" It's like, oh. That is one thing about reading to children in general. Sometimes they'll say funny things, but to your own kid, it's then cute.
Yeah.
Also, reading to children in general. I remember once I read The Three Little Pigs to a library group, and when the wolf tries to climb into the pig's house, some child's sort of opinion that like it would be fine for the kids to murder him, and that was I hope murdered everyone went to my house. And I was like, I'm just going to keep reading the next page.
Move on.
I'm not dealing with whatever this is. I'm not the teacher. But yes. The thing about it that, although it's nice and stuff, but I'm also a bit like, this is all about fossil fuels, oh no.
Yeah, don't have
there
any
are
electric
no
cars.
No, it's have you any fuel? Although I have to say, what fuel is this that is powering a bus, a train, and a plane? They don't have the same kinds of fuel.
At
It's
best,
fuel.
you'd be putting diesel in the bus and the train. But
Yeah.
aviation fuel is very different.
This is what I figured, so it's a bit like, but yes, it's just a bit like.
But
this
again,
is nice and also
it's not for,
full of fossil fuels. Anyways.
Anyway,
There
we're
is
getting. So I should do a few brief highlights of ones for.
Oh, you didn't get Dog Hell.
No. You're called what? This is by Kes Grey, who did the Frog and Friends books, illustrated by someone different. This is about
Jim Field, because you pointed out his name.
yes, Jim Field. But this is by Nicky Dyson. This is about a bunch of animals who are basically got daft names.
Do you think he was researching the Oi books and then just found loads and did
Wouldn't surprise
that?
me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So you've got a cockapoo, and a ice cream cone worm, and a shovel-nosed guitar fish, and they're all there.
Blue-footed booby.
Blue-footed booby, the
Blob.
pink fairy armadillo. So these are all animals that are at the basically want to change their names because they got silly names. And every time they say what they are, people laugh at them, which is understandable. So you get a lot of silly named animals, and it's quite fun because they're all real animals. So at the back they have about the animals and
apparently blobfish. You know how they look all
like a blob.
Yeah, apparently that's just because people usually show the wrong pressure because they're ones that and actually if they're under the sea they look perfectly fine.
Yeah, poor blobfish. But that's quite cool. It's a nice bit of education on a bit of, it's not really much of a story to it. It's just basically a lot of animal names and people laughing at them. But I quite enjoyed that one. We have the book with no pictures, which is a bit odd for a picture book to read to children. But this basically is there to teach them about about stories and words. So basically, as it said, it starts with, this is a book with no pictures. It might seem like no fun to have someone read a book with no pictures. It probably seems boring and serious. Except, here's how books work. Everything the words say, the person reading the book has to say. No matter what. And you can imagine it now promptly gets you to say silly things.
That's surely being an audiobook narrator.
So basically, yes, you're then just basically saying a lot of silly things. And it's got lots of random colours, but it's not just words. It's an odd book. It's quite fun. I think I bought more books down than you did, didn't I?
I did on mine.
Yeah.
We better spend some time.
The Day the Crayons Quit. It's about a boy's box of crayons by Oliver Jeffers. But no, it's not written. It's written by Drew Draywalt and illustrated by Oliver Jeffers. I didn't bring Penguin down. That's what I meant to bring down.
Oh, okay.
And it's a nice thing about colours and how they get seen.
That's another one where I think all the characters are supposed to be like three of the crayons are gendered as he. No one genders anything else. I always read the pink one as being like in a really masculine voice, and I think they're trying to make it camp.
I have done that in the past because it is amusing to do that.
Yeah, although I think from the way they've written it, they're actually
I give the purple one a bit of a.
Yeah, the purple one seems better. Yeah,
but a bit of a flair because but yeah, that's a fun way. It can be a bit long, but it's fun.
The crayons are all complaining about how they get used.
Yeah, they want to be used in different ways, or whether they're the actual proper colour of the sun. Dinosaurs in the Supermarket. because everyone loves dinosaurs. It's a fun little rhyming book with dinosaurs, and it's good to spot the dinosaurs. They're quite often, there's lots of them hidden about the pages. So this is a good one. That's Timothy Knapman and Sarah Warburton. Just on that one. And finally, one, because this is one I remember reading when I was a child. There's no such thing as a dragon. Quite dated in places. The illustrations are a bit dated, and the way that it's also American, which I always thought it was Welsh, but having Welsh family and most likely reading Ivor the Engine at the same time. But this is definitely an American book, because there's no way they'd be able to pick up a British house like that. Wouldn't work.
They would build a square street.
We don't build houses like that. But yes,
a dragon is doing it, so I wouldn't say it's going entirely for realism.
That's fair enough. But no, it's yeah, as I said, I remember growing up reading it. It's a nice little story about a dragon that. I
think it's more that the kid's got like baseball stuff in his room.
Oh, and yeah, just as I say, it's a nice story. We can ignore the datiness. Yeah, because it's about a dragon who wants to be noticed. And I brought Detective Dog down just in case, because Julia Donaldson. This one's what mentions about libraries, because
I can't help but read that bit where the book thief is like, "What is this place?" and the kid says, "It's the library." I just read that sarcastically.
I do. I agree. Yeah.
Like, it's the library.
It's the library. What do you expect?
No, it's just like,
yeah.
What do you know? This is a library.
Library. You can come in and get our books. Anyway.
I think it's supposed to be a little bit more informative. You're probably not supposed to be patronising the thief quite so much.
No, I do tend to patronise the thief.
Okay, fine. It's not just me. I thought maybe I was being mean.
Especially if I'm actually doing it in a session in the library.
Okay, that's fair enough. Those people who know about libraries are their own one.
Yeah. So anyway, I managed to get the skirt on the giant robot, which is good. Also, I can pull the.
I'll probably work on something next week. I realised I did the sewing for this, for the tapestry brick thing, and then realised I hadn't actually got anything to do for this evening because I hadn't decided what I was doing next. I have recently cut out some pieces to make some face masks, but those will be machine sewed, not hand sewed ones, because the hand sewn ones I did a few months ago were all right at first, but they've been used and washed quite a bit, so they are starting to pull away a bit. But that was mostly just, I think, when we first started going on the bus in July, so to have something to begin with. But I'm hoping these machine sewed ones will be better. I just need to figure it all out. I bought a lot of interface, so yeah.
There we go. So my robot with its skirt, and I've started on the chest unit and sort of it's about there. It's got his head on. Mm-hmm. Productivity. Anyway, the phone has told us it's time to put the milk bottles out. So we should say good night. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, if you haven't made it this far, then you can always catch up on YouTube when I eventually get around to uploading this.
Yeah, you need to upload a few more.
Remind me tomorrow.
Sure.
And we will be back possibly next week, possibly the week after, depending on how organised we are. I haven't thought that far ahead.
Well, we'll figure out.
We would. Anyway.
Okay. Well.
And this is the bit where I try now to work out where the stop button is, because I've lost it again.
Okay. Well, goodbye and stay safe.
Bye.